This boy and girl are going to be well equipped when the time comes to take their places as worthy members of adult society.
Aloha, y'all. This is Daniel Eisenman, the host of the Breaking Normal podcast, where my guests are all invited based on the frequency of synchronicity, all done in person, and all trailblazers in the breaking of all things normal. Welcome back to the Breaking Normal podcast. This is a special one for me because if you remember correctly, during Dr. Jack, what do you call that time during 2020 when they declared a national cry?
That was the plandemic.
Okay.
The plandemic.
So during...
We're just going to turn the lights off.
Oh, yeah, okay. Are we still on, though, or did you turn it off?
No, it's fine. We'll just cut out the recording. So just
Okay, I can restart it. I can do a
I feel like we're doing this from the mobile sauna place.
Like you feel like you're in it right now? Okay, nice.
Maybe it's just hot outside. No,
It is hot outside. It's good.
All right.
So we're going to read again? All right, we're going to start this podcast. Welcome back to the Breaking Normal podcast. I'm here with one of my biggest allies, Dr. Jack Wolfson. And last time I interviewed you, it was during what you called the plandemic. And I did a handful of interviews for some very special people virtually. I broke my own rules for the Breaking Normal podcast, and that is part of Breaking Normal. And we had a great interview, and we've worked together since then. And it was a radical interview because at that time, like this was the time when people were scared to speak up. And you told me something your daughter said to someone in an elevator that I was just like, wow, this guy is breaking normal. I originally learned about you because I saw the front cover of your book that a friend gave me, and it has a bison on it. And that's called Paleo Cardiologist. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, man, I'm stoked to be back here. I know you're on the way to the airport from Carbondale because you just dropped your son off on some sort of adventure.
Yeah, he's hanging out with a buddy of his, so, relationships are obviously really critical. We've traveled around a lot over the last 6 months because of various reasons. Most well-known that we've talked about a lot is because of mold exposure. Mm-hmm. So we've traveled around a lot. And because of that, our friends make connections, but then we move on. And I've always done my best to try and maintain those connections for all my children. But the 13-year-old took us back to Carbondale. So I dropped him off for a week with one of his buddies. And we got him all set up with all of his food and all his own things. And it was to continue with this stream of consciousness. His 13-year-old best friend that he's known for 6-7 years, Brody and I are eating eggs and smoked salmon for breakfast, and his buddy is eating Fruity Pebbles.
Fruity. That's one of like the bad dye ones.
I mean,
is that correct?
That's like bad everything. There's the artificial vitamins, the synthetic stuff they put in there. Of course, they've got all the food coloring that's still in there, and then throw in some GMO soybean oil into this mixture. And this poor kid, and he asked me, he said, is this bad for me to eat? And I said, it's bad for you to eat. I've already told you that over the years. And so has Brody and my entire family. And then he went on to eat it. But who's to blame? I mean, if a 13-year-old is smoking cigarettes in the house, someone's buying the cigarettes. So we got to blame the parents on that. And if you don't know the truth by now, I mean, come on. I don't know where, what rock you've been hiding under, what cave you've been living in. But pretty much everybody knows these foods are poison. So...
Okay, this is a great start. This is very much like a lot of our conversations. And for people that don't know, you are a cardiologist that has a practice called Natural Heart Doctor. It's based in Scottsdale. And you are on the road. Correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but you are on the road with Heather Wolfson, your wife, who also, we got to get her in one of these seats, with your 4 or 5, is it 4 kids? 4 kids. Mm-hmm. And y'all are basically escaping mold and the matrix while maintaining your businesses, while on the road with your 4 kids, with how many pets?
Yeah. So now we've got a dog, and we adopted a female cat. And when we adopted her, she was pregnant. So we have a male cat. The female cat, she had a litter of 6. So now we got 8 cats traveling around with us. And, as far as like escaping the matrix, I think we both know like that's extremely difficult. And so is escaping mold. So if you're living in a house with mold and or bacteria from water damage to the home, you're not going to be healthy. you're not going to be healthy. And my wife is overtly symptomatic from it: skin issues, gut issues, brain issues. And the rest of the family is also maybe not quite as obviously drastic. But the world is littered with guys like me who are like, oh, he was totally healthy. He ate all this organic food. He was super active, and then he dropped dead. Why is it? Well, it's not bad genetics, obviously, but he was living in poison. And mold is one of those biggest poisons.
Wow. There is so much to say. Last time I saw y'all, we went to the sauna here by the creek for
That was so much fun.
Your oldest son's birthday, right?
Yeah.
That was so much fun, and this is so much fun, and I'm happy to be here with you and to see where this dialogue takes us. But y'all were leaving the hill country of Texas, near Austin, Texas, to go to Idaho. And you all together on the road with the cats and everything. Yeah.
Well, and
how old are your kids, by the way? Just
18, 13, 7, and 4, 2 older boys and 2 younger girls. And so what happened, obviously just, we were down in that area where that Camp Mystic River tragedy, where all those girls died. We were about 20 minutes from there. We had already left, when the flooding happened. But as as a father too, you just kind of grip onto those little kids so tight. Life is so precious. And we kind of, a friend of mine likes to say that I talk about these, the rich white man's problems. Should I be eating free range bison or beef, and how much organic, and all this kind of thing. And yet, these human tragedies of what that was. I spent a good day, my kids were in church at the time. My wife was back at the campsite getting some stuff done. And I was sitting in this coffee shop, man, and I was just like sobbing, thinking about these little kids that didn't have a chance. Anyways, life is precious. So we want to enjoy ourselves, but we really continue to focus on just enjoying ourselves in a healthy way possible. And that's what we do.
Y'all are definitely one of the most breaking normal families. I wish we had like B-roll footage of us like at the restaurant with your 2 little girls and your older sons. And wow. And now you're going back to Idaho, because is this like a place y'all are exploring you were exploring to potentially live?
So, I was telling you before, a few hours ago when we spoke by phone. So we're up in Sandpoint, Idaho, and they are in the process of dumping pesticides, herbicides, into the lake up there, this Lake Ponderay, where there are thousands of people that swim in this lake every day. Recently, they did this 2-mile swim where they swim across what's called the Long Bridge, and the Long Bridge kind of connects the Sagal area coming up from Coeur d'Alene up into Sandpoint. At one point, it was the longest. It was a 2-mile wooden bridge. And I read that it was the longest wooden bridge in the world at one point. So they've replaced it with concrete. That's where the swim is. The point is, is that they're dumping herbicides into the water, and you're like escaping the matrix. How do you escape that? Like, what am I escaping, from that? And some of my, you talk about my book, The Paleo Cardiologist, and I've been called the Paleo Cardiologist, and that was the reason why we titled the book that and had the bison on the front, as you said. But I've also been called the Chemtrail Cardiologist and the Conspiracy Cardiologist. And maybe I'll just use this opportunity to say, let's just A, question everything, and then B, the freedom to question everything, the freedom to have these conversations. That's why, allegedly, the United States was formed. That's why people came here to get out of tyranny. They came here from France and from England and from Ireland. They were looking to escape Spain. They were looking to escape tyranny. And we got to be really careful, obviously, because there's a lot of tyranny here. And we mentioned the pandemic, how anybody can say pandemic with a straight face, these days really is just, it's shocking to me. And, again, just escaping the tyranny.
Well, y'all are making a very valiant effort. Not many people would have the gall or the tenacity or you and Heather are powerful people, and so are your children, but just to commit to taking the whole family on the road with new pets in a pursuit of that freedom is pretty noteworthy and admirable, and I'm inspired. So
yeah, well, I mean, and again, it's great to be here with you and have these conversations because, you know, you feel like a brother from another mother, and those people are a little bit few and far between. You know, there's more and more in our circles, and where we're up in northern Idaho, there's a lot of freedom people, a lot of like-minded people, you know, that are up there. But, you know, if people like us aren't talking the talk, right? If I was someone who's like, oh, we got to eat all organic food, we got to only eat free range grass fed, we only should be eating wild seafood, yet I turned around and did something different. I mean, that's the ultimate in hypocrisy, especially from a health standpoint. And the medical doctors, of course, are famous for that, right? I was in cardiology groups, you know, over the years, and the biggest group in the state of Arizona is a hospital-based cardiologist, and you know, cardiologists would say, don't drink coffee. Yet he would go drink coffee. You know, maybe they'd pay some lip service to various food. Yet in the doctor's lounge, there was some junk, pound cake or something, you know, that the doctors would be eating. So yeah, hopefully what we do is inspirational to a lot of people. And if everybody can make a little bit of changes, the more changes you make, the better. But we got to start somewhere.
Well, I definitely think one of the most obvious glitches in the matrix that I can see, it's the hospital is serving fast food, and the pharmacy is serving. It has almost like 90% of the unhealthiest products someone could buy, and a lot of them are marketed towards children.
The hospital is, you know, in the medical industry, I mean, it's the biggest scam. It's not the biggest scam, obviously. You can talk about banking, you can talk about military, you know, you can talk about a lot of different scams, or maybe using scamdemic, you know, into this as well. You can talk about a lot of these different things. And I worked at the Cleveland Clinic when I was a student. There was a McDonald's in the lobby. It's now since gone from there, but there was a McDonald's, and I was eating at it. You know, this is, you know, circa 1995. I was down at University of Miami, you know, where you're from, Jackson Memorial, you know, down there, and you know, the junk and the stuff, you know, stacks of pancakes that they give to the patients. So the whole medical industry is just so fraught with error and just egregious behavior on behalf of everybody involved. Don't get me wrong. God bless the men and women who work in emergency rooms and trauma centers, because we need that. You know, we're in a skiing accident, we break a leg, you know, they're great for trauma. But when it comes to the prevention, the treatment, the reversal of chronic illnesses, blood pressure, coronary artery disease, diabetes, they've got nothing. They've got nothing on their side. And that's just horrific.
What do the typical Western medicine, what do they have right about cardiology?
They have nothing right. They have nothing right outside of the scant evidence of some benefit to stent placement in the face of an acute myocardial infarction. So if someone's in the middle of a heart attack, putting in a stent does save lives. Now, it's not 100% versus 0%, but there is a demonstrable clinical benefit to doing that. There is a demonstrable benefit to bypass surgery in some people, to valve replacement surgery in some people. A condition maybe like aortic dissection, where their main artery of the body tears open, and that could be life-saving. But if you talk about, do the blood pressure drugs work? No. Do the cholesterol drugs work to save lives and prevent heart attacks and strokes? No. Do the blood thinners? I mean, all these things that they do, all the tests that they do, are just fraught with so many different errors, so many different problems. And ultimately it's a hundreds of billions of dollar industry, cardiology, alone, let alone oncology and neurology and some of these other areas. But and the sooner we get people to wake up to this reality that they're absolutely poisoning us. And I'll say one more thing about this, because somebody may comment and say, well, if you look at the statin trials, and you say the statin users versus placebo had less heart attacks, less strokes, and less people died. Let's say that that's true according to their data that they produce. We don't have to go conspiratorial and say it is a $100+ billion industry and maybe the whole thing is a lie. But let's just take it for face value that it's true. But the heart attack and stroke and life extension benefit is tiny. So when I say statin drugs kill millions of people, it's not that when you swallow it, it directly kills you. I'm not going to make that claim. But when you swallow that down, you're into the medical matrix, you're buying into their philosophy. And then now your risk went from 3% of having a heart attack or stroke this year to 2.85%. Which means we failed the 2.85% of people because they never got the message that you and I talk about all day long. And when 2.85% of people, you multiply that by a 300 million United States population, you get millions of people who have died because they didn't get the message.
And that message, would you care to share?
The message is, it's to break out of that system and just reclaim what is naturally ours, that we are built to be healthy and well. We should be eating these foods, avoiding these foods, living this lifestyle, avoiding these unhealthy lifestyle things, like I mentioned already several times, where we're talking about mold or living in a sick building. And we should be thinking the right thoughts. We should be finding our happiness, which is not easy. A lot of people, they're in terrible relationships. They hate their job. They hate, the geopolitical stressors. So how do you find that think well category? And we know that people who have stress, anger, anxiety, fear, worry, depression, PTSD, they have a markedly higher risk of disease. So those are the factors that we need to address. And clearly mainstream is not doing it. They're not trained to do that. The best doctors at Harvard, at Yale, at Cedars-Sinai, University of Miami, at the Cleveland Clinic, they're not trained in that. So you're not going to get that message. And that's something that a lot of people are obviously waking up to, but we need to make this happen a lot quicker.
Well, one unique thing that you are really drilling in on here is the idea of a sick building. I know a lot of people that take their health quite sincerely, but they're not taking this part as sincerely as you and your family are. How would someone know if their building is sick?
Well, that's a big one. And I guess you would probably know for sure you're eating all this free range grass-fed food. You're taking Tribe vitamins. You're getting sunshine. You're watching Dan Eisenman on Instagram and you're doing pull-ups and push-ups and squats and lunge. You're doing all this stuff, You're outside. You're doing everything right, but you still don't feel well. Something is off. And you're not built to feel off. Why would that? Something is still poisoning you. Now, that could be the air we breathe, what we drink, the soil that we're around. As I mentioned, you think you're doing everything and then you jump into this Lake Pend Oreille up in Sandpoint, Idaho, and unbeknownst to you, they just dumped herbicides in there. You swallow those herbicides down, they destroy your gut microbiome, leading to leaky gut, inflammation, oxidative stress, autoimmune issues, inflammation, all these things that occur with it. And then you have leaky blood vessels, coronary artery disease, heart attack, stroke, dead. Cancer, dead. Brain disease, dead. And to the sick building, it's just everything in your home, in the modern home these days, I don't want to say on purpose, but let's just say it is making you sick, from the flooring to the paint to the EMF, and then to the fact that all these houses that are made of popsicle sticks, because that's the wood they're made from, is popsicle sticks. They're all moldy. They come to you with mold. They grow mold. You breathe in mold mycotoxins. And that's where the sickness starts.
Well, I trust we're all staying clear of that. And to me, it seems...
Don't trust it, brother.
Taking action.
Don't
praying,
trust it.
trusting. Because otherwise, someone could drive themselves mad about everything to be afraid of.
You know, we've mentioned The Matrix a couple times, so it makes me think of the movie The Matrix, right? So the actor Joe Palantonio, he was originally, kind of rescued by Morpheus, took out of the Matrix, and then now he's trying to help, the people, Morpheus and Neo and everything else, Trinity. But he's a turncoat. The agents get to him, and Joe Palantonio in the movie says, you know what? I don't want to live like this. Put me back in the Matrix. Make me someone rich, important, like an actor. Give me a steak, and a fancy glass of wine, because most people don't want to do what we've done. Most people can't even concept it. And it's a lot. I'm not saying it's easy. But let me say this too, Daniel, is that it's not either or. It's not, okay, I'm not going to eat these foods. I'm not going to spend all this money on tribe vitamins. I'm not going to run around naked in the sun, like Daniel does. And I'm not going to go jump in the freezing cold river. Yeah, all these, they're not going to do this. So instead, they're going to take their blood pressure drugs and their statin drugs and be in the sickness model. The problem is, it's not either or. They're going to die. It's not either or. If you are in the sickness model, you die on average at 76. That's well known. The American male lives until 76. But if you want to be 100 and beyond, you want to watch your daughter get older, get married, have a family of her own, be an active grandfather, right? Where you and your grandkids are jumping in the river together, and you're out there, you're 65 and your grandkids are, 5, 6, 7, 10 years old, and you guys are all doing pull-ups in the park. But the 90% of people don't have that. They can't even, you know how it is. They can't even get out of bed without aches and pains. That's the medical model. So if we don't take these proactive steps, as drastic as they are, it's just not going to work out. It's just not going to work out.
But it almost sounds like you're saying every home is sick, like every building is sick. It is.
It is.
So everyone can't just leave their building. Like everyone. Maybe some people will be inspired to consider.
What I want to do is give people.
And I'm not one to say can't. So
okay.
I think that's blasphemous.
Well,
but it's just I could see how someone would think that.
And a lot of times too is that people are already sick, and when you're sick, it's hard to think about making these moves. It's very easy to say, okay, take this vitamin, take this supplement. That's easy, right? I can open a bottle of Tribe and I could, swallow a handful of capsules. That's easy. But doing some of these other drastic steps, and maybe it's just a matter of, okay, I live in Buffalo, New York, and what do I do in the wintertime? How am I supposed to be outside and get sun and vitamin D and all these things? And we're like, well, move. Well, I can't move. My job's here. My family's here. Our intention is to give people the answers. But now it's up to them to do it, right? It's up to the individual to do it. And we feel that if Jack Wolfson can do it, the son of a cardiologist from the north suburbs of Chicago, I didn't even know until I was in my mid-20s that I had to take my car for an oil change because my mommy did it for me. She would always take it, for what did she call it? For grease and lube or whatever she said. I'm dropping off the car for, and I'm like, whatever, So if I came from that, and now I can live outside in a tent, which again is not easy, but living in a tent, cooking outside, doing your own laundry, and all the things that go along with it. I feel like if I can do it, pretty much anybody can.
I love that inspiring element of what y'all are doing. And for someone that's like, well, they're not going to leave their building. I do, like when I used to travel and I used to notice probably the health status of different buildings.
You're pretty dialed in. You're a very in tune person, and you're probably someone as well who, you're used to doing 25 pull-ups, and maybe you get into a situation where you're like, dang, I'm struggling, I'm at 17, like something is off in that scenario.
And what I'm saying though is that there's got to be things people can do to their home right now. Like I would say 99.9% of the last 15 years of my life, I sleep next to an open window, for instance.
Yeah.
And especially in places that are a little like a hotel that I'm like, this place seems a little moldy, or they got a lot of carpet. I'm sleeping with that window wide open. Are there other like easy to implement ideas for maybe enlivening someone's sick home?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about that, but I do want to say this as well. So we're up in Sandpoint, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, one thing that I used to go to the gym all through medical school. There was Bally's was the chain that was pretty nationwide, but certainly in Chicago, we'd go to the Bally's and we were like lifting heavy weights. And I said, I'm doing a lot of body weight stuff, but I'd like to get down onto a bench press. I'd like to stack it up a little bit, maybe add some weights, to my legs or something. And I walk into this gym there, and just as soon as I walk, I knew it was going to happen, right? Like the chemical smell of the cleaning agents at the gym. And I could have stayed there and said, okay, well, this is worth it to me or it's not, like to breathe this in. But then I get it in my mind. I'm like, I'm going to have a heart attack in this place. Like it's so toxic. It's so poisonous. So to answer your question, yeah, opening up the window is going to be beneficial. Outdoor air invariably is better than most indoor air. If you have a good a good filtration system in your home, but a lot of those are moldy because of condensation issues. That happens very quickly. There are some very high-end air systems you can get that can be helpful. Standalone towers where you replace the filters can be helpful. And then everything that we do is going to help. So again, for the plug for Tribe and any other, eating the organs, for example, when you're eating these foods, it optimizes hepatic function, liver function, to allow you to clear those environmental toxins to the best of your ability. So all the things that we do undoubtedly help. But for those people that maybe they don't feel great. Maybe maybe they feel good, but their blood work still shows a lot of inflammation, a lot of oxidation. It's happening from something. And, another big offender is plastic. People who consume out of plastic. I mean, plastic, the study that came out a year ago where they looked at the carotid arteries of people who underwent carotid endarterectomy. So the carotid arteries, there's two of them. They supply the blood flow to the brain, help us think and cognition and memory and all these things. So when they become blocked, they can cause symptoms, can cause a stroke. So these people go for surgery and they take out all the gunk in the artery, all the plaque. And then the researchers looked at it under a microscope. And what they found is that 2/3 of the people had evidence of plastic in the plaque. Surprisingly, 1/3 didn't. Surprisingly, in this environment, 1/3 didn't. The 2/3 of the people that had plastic in their artery had a 300% higher risk of heart attack, stroke, and dying in the subsequent 3 years, which makes plastic exposure a bigger risk factor than smoking, high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity combined times 4. And yet everywhere is plastic. We got this, this bottle of Saratoga here, right? Fancy water.
Mm-hmm.
What's on the inside of that cap?
I've heard this.
You've heard this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so again, it's very easy to throw our hands up in the air and say, like, what are we going to do about this? But,
I think it's such a balance because I get to maintain a healthy, like mental and emotional and spiritual and like psychological life dealing with all these things. So, I get to aim to maybe become, in a way, like anti-fragile in a way that like where I can, like I really like what you said about the eating the liver to make your liver stronger to help clear out some of these potential exposures of toxins that we didn't ask for. Because, we could, it's a little scary out there. What about the skies? Do they spray the skies in Costa Rica? Or...
as far as I can tell, the skies are getting sprayed everywhere.
Even in Central and South America.
Everywhere. Yeah. It's not as bad down there from what I've noticed, but it's happening everywhere all the time. And, again, it's just about asking questions. What are they spraying? Why are they spraying it? Is it some big global nefarious, agenda to make us all sick? Do they think they're doing good work by putting metals into the sky to reflect energy to keep our planet cooler from global warming? We don't have to debate that now. There's plenty of people who've got plenty of evidence, but I guess one thing, Daniel, is that when we were living down in Scottsdale, Arizona, you wake up in Scottsdale, Arizona, skies are clear, it's gorgeous outside. Then the planes go by, and by late afternoon, the entire sky is overcast. And nobody asks a question. Nobody says what happened to the real clouds. There's all these different, cumulus and nimbus and cumulonimbus, all these different clouds that they're just, you don't see them anymore. They're gone.
Sometimes, but I do see more of what you're talking about.
Yes.
Especially when they fly in the grids.
Yeah.
And then that iridescent looking foam thing starts covering the sky.
What's also is interesting about the sky is that when I was a kid, right, 1970s, there was no talk about satellites in the sky. And if you were stargazing, if you were you were Chicagoland, middle of July, laying outside, looking up, you didn't see anything except for, what you perceive to be celestial objects. And now we've been living so much outside. I lay in that tent, don't have the rain fly on. I'm looking through the mesh of the tent, and I see the satellites just crossing the sky like the entire time. It seems like every time you look up, it's in your visual field somewhere. So now you've got the satellite. What is it doing up there? Well, it's sending electromagnetic frequencies down to Earth. And we like that because, right, it's like that's why, you want good cell phone connection. You want to be dialed in at all times. You want your GPS working, your maps, Google Maps working. But the consequences of that, yeah. And that's, again, that's totally unavoidable. So it's like you need to do your best to control truly what you can. I can't control what they're spraying in the air. I can't control the satellites in the sky. Maybe I can't control what's going on with cell phones, what's going on with smart meters. I mean, there's certain things we could do, but it's kind of like we're gonna die trying is what it is. And the children, that's where it really makes it all worthwhile. It really does.
Speaking of children, and one thing people could start controlling more. I know in our last interview, you definitely made it clear you were not promoting the COVID vaccine at all. Quite the opposite. Is there any vaccines that you think are
so to
helpful?
me, the choice again is you choose to be in the sickness realm or you choose to be in the health realm. And they are mutually exclusive. There's not, I'm going to vaccinate for the chicken pox, but I'm going to make sure that my kid has organic Fruit Loops for breakfast. Like that's not going to work out for you. You're in the sickness world. So that's just how it is. You trust in the innate. You trust in however we got here, the evolutionary body, the God-given body, the God-created evolutionary body, however we got here, and you trust in that ability. When you give the body what it needs, take away what it doesn't, it will be healthy. All disease is from too much bad stuff and not enough good stuff. So you get more good stuff and less bad stuff. And I would say that the vaccines, the injections, the childhood antibiotic industry, the pediatricians in general, that's the sickness world. And that's the bad stuff. And if we just push the good stuff that's how we're going to be as close to bulletproof as possible. And again, you talk about, breaking the normal. So breaking the normal is getting out of the sick home, because it's the norm to be in the sick home. It's the norm to be in the pediatrician medical matrix model of getting your child, injected with over 70 different, doses of 17 or 18 different shots. And that's just not an industry that I want to participate in.
For someone that took a injection that they would not do in the future, and they're like, is there anything that they can do now? I see all kinds of like people selling remedies online, like dandelion root or whatever. But do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah, I think that I think ultimately, to our point is like, if you're doing everything you can from an eat well, live well, think well standpoint, using these food-based supplements to improve your health, to keep your body as strong as possible, I think that's the best thing you could do. All these other things, whether it's, people are talking about ivermectin, fenbendazole, they're talking from a pharmaceutical standpoint, they're talking about different antibiotics that people take for long COVID. I don't buy into any of that. I'm anti all of that. I'm all about, just using these natural strategies to do the best you can. And, ultimately, if you are sick from what you perceive as long COVID, I would look into the mold issue. I would look into the sick building issue. But as far as would I be taking ivermectin or something else that someone's selling, I think that the injection is into your body. It's there to stay. What exactly was in there, I believe, is unknown. But at a minimum, it was mRNA, of which there's a lot of pharmaceutical, a lot of other injections that are coming out. So, for example, in my world, cholesterol is perceived as the bad guy, right? And there's another cholesterol particle called LP, little a, parentheses, LP, parentheses, little a. And there is an mRNA vaccine that's coming out that is going to be targeted at changing the production of LP little a, dropping the production dramatically by basically targeting the enzyme that produces it. And it's going to work. It's going to work to lower the number down. Now, the question will be, does it lower your risk of having a heart attack, stroke, and dying? We will see if that's the case. I still would never take it personally, but we'll see what the data shows. But the mRNA that was injected, I think it's permanent damage. You can do the best to supplement your body, but damage was done. They fooled you once. Don't be fooled again.
Wow. Another trending injection, not that type of injection, but the peptides like BCP. What is that one that everyone's talking about? BPC 157 or something?
Well, that's the one that's, I think, most available.
Okay.
And so it was interesting because peptides were really becoming all the rage up until 2023. And then some government issue happened where they took them essentially all off the market. And my hope is that they do come back on the market and people make an informed decision. Again, that's all kind of like what I call the biohacking stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got the foundational things: eat well, live well, think well. Then you can do the most advanced testing in the world, where we call that test, don't guess. You can use evidence-based supplements, and you're swallowing your Bison capsules and whatever else it may be. And then there's biohacking, right? There's cold plunge, there's sauna, there's ozone, there's hyperbaric, there's red light therapy, there's peptides, there's hormones, there's a lot of tons of biohacking stuff that people can do. And I think for some people, they're going to wind up being extremely effective, but I would prefer to layer it on top of, I did the foundational things. I'm still coming up a little bit short, and therefore, give me one of these injectables.
Okay, cool. I have to ask, and then I might even bring out some popcorn questions because our time is just cruising. Thank you for your time. Why bison over beef?
Why bison over beef, right? So that's the softball. So you know the answer to that. So, you and I both hold that, and you had the epiphany moment before I did. Although it was on the cover of my book, so I understood it to be like this Paleolithic animal, this prehistoric animal. But really, the appreciation for what that animal is, and you and I went on a bison harvest together. You took myself and my two boys, and I mean that is a life experience, as you know, that that I had and that my sons had, right? We're passing around the raw heart, the raw liver, the raw testicles with the members of the Lakota tribe. A couple converted vegans were out there with us as well. So super cool. The bison is just a majestic, ancient animal. And a cow is a hybrid over the last several thousand years. It's just there were no cows as they are now walking around on Earth thousands of years ago, but the bison was. And I think ultimately it's a hardier animal. You could look at the vitamin, mineral, and nutrient profile and make claims about it. And I'm not bashing on, doing grass-fed, grass-finished beef. I think that there's times when we will eat that, but my preference is always bison. And I think that from a bison organ standpoint, two things, you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for when Tribe, sells a bottle of vitamins, because your product costs you that much more to get, because those animals are much more premium, much more rare than a New Zealand cow. And then you can also look at some of the industry and say, well, where is that, how is that animal truly fed? Is that animal, how many vaccines did they get? What type of animal was it? Was it some old heifer cow that was milked to death for 9 or 10 years, and then they take the organs and now you're eating that? So I think that a lot of people, the players in the industry who you and I both know very well, they've brought a lot of awareness to the movement, but don't confuse the product that you're carrying to theirs, because it's truly a different thing. And if you want the best, then take the best. If you're sitting there and you're like, I only have $30 a month for this product that I buy on Amazon, and I only have $30 a month. Okay, fine. Now you can also say, well, you can take half the dosage of my product and you're going to get a better outcome than the full dosage of theirs. So actually it comes out, even financially.
Well, and another angle too is people don't have to be eating these crazy Fruit Loop and or other breakfast and lunches and brunches. For me, when I'm on the move, it's like traveling. It becomes so clear when I have Tribe vitamins on me and I can take like 10 bison livers. I'm like, okay, good. I don't need to waste my time at some weird cafe. I can keep on moving and I even feel better and more alert and more nourished. It's
a perfect travel food.
Yeah.
It really is a perfect travel food. A lot of times in the morning, I'll take the caps, with my morning coffee. I'll do coffee, raw cream, and a lot of times that's my breakfast. Simplicity, right? You don't have to cook it. I mean,
and that saves money too. That's what I'm saying on the financial aspect. It's just another way of thinking about it.
And it is part of the food budget. It's not part of the I take $300 worth of vitamins a month. A lot of times, right? Pretty much every time, you can get rid of all that synthetic stuff and you take this, food as medicine, Bison capsules, and you're good to go. You're giving, I'm in some of these methylation groups, right? Okay. So, MTHFR, gene methylation, they'll call it an abnormality, a mutation. 50% of the population has what would be called an undermethylating gene, either the CT or the TT. The TT would be 10% of the population that has what's essentially thought of as like the double bad gene. Now, I would also go and say, well, why would we have evolved or been created to have this double bad gene? We're not. There's a purpose to it. But the point I'm trying to make is that the answer is not synthetic, lab-made, methylated B vitamins. The answer is eating the organs and swallowing the Bison organ capsules.
That's God bless. Amen.
That's it.
Let's go. What are we at time-wise? 43. I usually ask at 44. Now it's at 43:57. So, but we had that little delay in the beginning. Anyways, are you ready for some popcorn before you hit the airplane?
I'm ready.
That does make me. All right, I'll just throw. I might throw some of my own and some of the preloaded ones. Is there any protocols you have for a plane ride to stay healthy up there?
Great. So we don't have to eat while traveling. And we don't have to. We like to, it passes the time, but it's going to be junk food. I'm the guy who opens up a can of sardines on the plane. I'll take the hard-boiled eggs out on the plane. Nobody likes that guy. So instead of being that guy, I prefer to fast. I'll just, preferably get glass, which again is not easy while traveling. That's about the only time I'll drink out of plastic is while traveling. But even then, I'll typically not even drink it. I'll bring it just in case there is some kind of delay. The plane could get hot. I don't want to drink the airplane water, so I'll do that. And then, one thing too is that as soon as we have the opportunity after we fly, find some patch of grass, take off your shoes, and get grounded again. I think that's critical.
I'm such a believer in that last part, especially like if you're going to an ocean, go right to the ocean, go right to the creek, go right to the spring, go right to the grass for sure.
Yeah. It's funny too, because I'm an anti-mask guy. And my wife, I could say comfortably never wore a mask in her life, ever. And it was a lot of crazy things that went along with that. My point though is that an airplane is probably the one place I could think about. That would be the place to wear the mask. There's so much poison on that plane. What they're putting on the plane, what they're spraying on the plane, and then of course the close confines of the other people. So what are you breathing in from other people? Is it a virus? Is it a bacteria? Is it some other exosomal excretion from that person? Are they shedding? I don't wear a mask on the plane because all the masks obviously are all toxic and poison, but I think that's one place that I would actually entertain wearing it. Not out of fear of some bogus COVID thing, but just out of a fear of something else.
That'll be the day when I see you selling masks on your website. Oh, by the way, where do people follow you? Where's the best place to follow you or reach out or whatever?
Yeah, so Natural Heart Doctor is our website. So it's myself. I've got a team of cardiologists, health coaches who are there. We love getting people off of pharmaceuticals safely and effectively. Heart disease is no more killer worldwide. People are scared. People are nervous, and they should be. And we would just want to be a second opinion. Say, your other doctor said this, this, and this. Okay. We're going to tell you this, this, and this. And if you want to follow us on that journey, then we'll help you. We'll help you along. So Natural Heart Doctor. I was kicked off TikTok a couple weeks ago. So I'm no longer on TikTok. I had 485,000, I hate to say followers, but nonetheless, there were followers of me on TikTok. That account was banned because of conversations like this.
Wow.
But I am still on Instagram, and Instagram is, that's where I share a lot of my thoughts as well. And for now, Instagram appears to be kind of a freedom town. So we'll see.
All right.
We'll see.
Right. I'll have some popcorn ones now. Are you ready to try to answer these in like a minute or less? We'll do a quick 30 seconds. We'll see. Is everything we've been told about cholesterol wrong?
Everything we've been told about cholesterol is definitely wrong. Definitely wrong. So cholesterol, our body makes for a reason. Vitamin D, it's for our digestion, all of our hormones, right? Testosterone is pretty important. So is estrogen, progesterone, the balance thereof, it all comes from cholesterol. All of our cell membranes, the brain, the fence that surrounds our cells, all made of cholesterol. Critically important. It was vilified purely for money, not only in the food industry, but also in the pharmaceutical industry. Cholesterol's awesome.
All right. Are statins actually increasing the risk of death in seniors?
Well, statins, there are some studies that show that there is a higher mortality amongst statin users age 65 and over. That was the All Hat LLC trial, where for primary prevention, those people on statin, they had a higher mortality risk. In fact, if you were above 75 on statins, 34% higher mortality risk. You're not going to hear that from the general doctor. They still talk, glowingly about statin drugs. The pharmaceutical industry is the number one marketing entity in the world. They are purely marketing people of what they are. But statins, I believe in anyone, is wrong. And like I said earlier in our podcast, that it's this false sense of security. I can eat whatever I want, take a statin drug, I'll be fine. No, you're going to be dead.
All right. Can the COVID vaccine trigger heart issues like AFib or stroke?
I've seen it dozens and dozens and dozens of times personally, seen a lot online. any vaccine triggers the immune system. That's the alleged intention of the vaccine, to trigger the immune system to create a response. Invariably, that leads to inflammation, and inflammation is linked to every cardiac issue. So we saw a lot of people with atrial fibrillation. We saw a lot of people myocarditis, pericarditis. We saw a lot of people with PACs, PVCs, again, these abnormal heart rhythms, because the heart was irritated. For whatever reasons, it was irritated, leading to problems. So yeah, the answer is yes.
Okay. Wow. What do conventional cardiologists miss in a 10-minute heart check that you would not?
So a 10-minute heart check is all they're qualified to do. That's all they need, right? Because they don't know, like you and I know, about nutrition. They don't know about lifestyle. They don't know about meditation and yoga and Tai Chi and healthy thought processes. They don't know about evidence-based supplements. They don't know about Bison organs, and they don't know about methylene blue or whatever other biohack we could be talking. They know about pharmaceuticals and surgical procedures. So they really they need less than 10 minutes. Because here's how the typical thing is. Daniel, good to see you. You just turned 40. You got this questionable family history. Let's do a CT scan. Look for coronary artery calcification. If that's a little bit abnormal, we'll do a stress test. We'll put you on a statin drug, and we'll go from there. That's a 30-second conversation, not even a 10-minute. It's a 30-second conversation. And that's what happens tens of thousands of times every single day. So the 10-minute medical model is a joke. We need to take time to be able to educate people and then go over the results of advanced testing, and really in order to make the changes that why we became medical doctors.
Strong answers. Thank you. Is it possible to reverse heart disease without drugs or surgery?
Yes. No, it's definitely possible to reverse heart disease, coronary artery disease. So when you, again, give the body what it needs, take away what it doesn't, less bad stuff, more good stuff. The coronary artery disease, for example, the blockages, they will stabilize, they can reverse, they can minimally progress. But if you and I are talking right now and we both have some evidence of coronary artery disease, but neither one of us has symptoms, right? You go out into, the park, you do 25 pull-ups. I'll squeeze out maybe 12. And if we don't have symptoms, then we're okay. But if you don't have symptoms, the arteries that we have right now, we can live with for the next 175,000 years. We just don't want them to get worse. And they don't get worse when you follow the methods that we're talking about.
All right. Why do you call yourself, or why did you, I'm not sure if you still do, but why did you or why do you call yourself the paleocardiologist, and what does that mean for diet?
So when I first opened up my eyes to health and wellness, and it is because I met this woman in the end of 2004 who opened up my eyes to real health and wellness. One of the books that I started reading was really diving into nutrition. So the first book I read was called The Paleo Diet by Lauren Cordain, PhD. And then another book by a guy by the name of Ray Audette, which was called Neander Thin. So paleo, again, is old Stone Age. These books are from the early 2000s or late 1990s. And really the book by Weston A. Price, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, should be, in a world of where everybody's making things that are mandatory, it has to be fundamental for children to read, or at least teenagers. Okay, so paleo represents old Stone Age. It's before the agricultural disrevolution that happened, and disevolution is what happened there. So those are the foods, and I started talking about it. I was always like paleo this, paleo that. And it was okay. So the paleo cardiologist. I'm not the carnivore cardiologist. I'm not the keto cardiologist. I'm certainly not the vegan or the vegetarian cardiologist. I'm a paleo cardiologist. Our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. That's the food we want to eat if we want to survive.
All right. Which cholesterol, all right, let me rephrase this. Which cholesterol markers actually matter and which ones are misleading?
So total cholesterol doesn't matter. LDLs and HDLs don't really matter. The most important marker as far as lipids are concerned, or cholesterol, if you will, is a ratio. It's called the ApoB, ApoA ratio. That's a nice measure to look at to determine your risk. What is your risk of having a heart attack, stroke, or dying based on those parameters? Another, of course, is Lp(a). It's about 10 to 15% of the population has very high levels of Lp(a). It's a genetic thing. I believe it had benefit years ago, which is why that gene exists. But those are the markers we would look at. But much more important are things like inflammation and oxidative stress. And if all of those are abnormal, then we just peel back the onion and figure out why. Why are we inflamed? We're inflamed because we violate the laws of eat well, live well, think well. And if we fix those violations, then we're going to lower inflammation. Our lipids are going to improve. And all this genetic stuff, our genetics are perfect. We can run and jump and see and feel, and we can make babies, and you can do 25 pull-ups, and somebody else can run, 100 meters in 9.2 seconds. Where's the genetic flaws there? Our genes are perfect until man-made poisons screw it up.
On that note, how much control does Big Pharma have over heart health guidelines?
Well, historically, they've had all the control. And I think that what's happening right now is that they're losing it. And there is definitely this Maha movement that is happening. And the definition of make America healthy again and the means to that objective, I'm different than a lot of other people in that arena. But I think pretty much everybody is waking up now and saying, I don't want to be on pharmaceuticals like my parents, like my grandparents. And we have this conversation of, I want to be the 83-year-old guy who's still mountain biking with my kids and my grandkids. And people see that they don't get there when they're in and out of the pharmacy. They're in and out of the doctor's office. If you're in and out of the pharmacy and in and out of the doctor's office, you better do something about it immediately. But they're not going to go down without a fight. The same company, Pfizer, who produced the first COVID shot, also produced Lipitor, which is the #1 selling drug of all time prior to the COVID shots. And the pharmaceutical does nothing and is responsible, I believe, for killing millions of people.
Wow. All right. This might be the last one or one of the last ones. What lifestyle change can add decades to your cardiovascular health? No pill required.
Well, we all love to debate the food story. Skipping over the food story, this is the lifestyle category. So one thing certainly is getting better sleep. Sleep deprivation is military torture. Sleep deprivation, every study shows it's bad. Go to sleep shortly after the sundown, wake up before the sunrise, watch the sunrise, spend the day in and out of the sun. Your skin is a solar panel built to collect light. So let me say this, the more time you spend outside, the longer you will live. More time outside will add decades to your life.
Hence why you're living outside now. All right. I skipped over one, but I'll go back to it. And you may have talked about it, but since we are doing okay on time, it's 1:06. How are microplastics, mold, and toxins silently damaging people's hearts?
So what happens is that all of these environmental toxins, we breathe them in, they come in through our skin, but a major source is swallowing them down. And then all of these toxins impact the gut microbiome. When you have a bowel movement, 2/3 of it, 3/4 of it is not food, it's actually bacterial waste. So when we damage our gut microbiome, that leads to what's called leaky gut or intestinal hyperpermeability, where things cross the intestinal barrier, get into the body where they don't belong. The immune system senses these foreign invaders. The immune system kicks in. You get a lot of these immune-related cellular activity. They can lead to autoimmune attack, thyroid, pancreas, myocarditis, whatever it may be. They can also lead to a lot of this excess inflammation, oxidative stress. A lot of that leads to leaky blood vessels. The blood vessel barriers open up, and then oxidized, damaged LDL particles get into the intima, the media of the blood vessel, set up an inflammatory cascade there, heart attack, stroke, dead. So the point is that as much as we can minimize the environmental toxins and pollutants from damaging the gut, but then also there's room there for fermented foods or even taking probiotics. Raw dairy, for example, which we're both a fan of. Raw dairy, milk, raw milk, cheese, cream, butter, yogurt. All those things are all very, kombucha, all those things are very, very nourishing to the gut microbiome, and you'll see a lot of changes.
Wow. It looks like we did it for real. And we're just under an hour. Any question for me?
Good stuff, my brother. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. It's, maybe the question, let me ask you this. So, you're for all intents and purposes, a single father. Mm-hmm. And how, and maybe some advice because I think it's easier for you to make these decisions, but maybe for a quote unquote, a broken home, how do you institute your values while the child is with you? And then how do you extend that into when the child is with the other parent? Because most scenarios, right, the mother is really trying to do all these proactive, healthy things. And the father comes in and says, hey, we're going to inject this. We're going to do this. We're going to go out for this. Because that's not something I have experience navigating. Thank God, so.
Yeah, fortunately, my personal co-parenting situation, though, I think our values around holistic health are still quite aligned. So fortunately, I don't have to deal with that aspect of it much. But as a foundation that for everything with my daughter is truth, honesty. I really, as long as she tells me the truth, and even if it's like something I'm like, I don't like, it gives me an opportunity to talk about how we feel, and have, when there's nothing left to hide, I feel like then she's in a pure place. And for me as well. And I do find her being extremely honest about things she tells me. It seems like so far she's really gotten into the habit of telling me everything that I want to know about when I'm not there. And it's almost like she's like a reporter, like a journalist. She does it very well.
Yeah.
And that's that, because if we're being transparent with each other, and I think we have just like right now, I don't think me and you are for instance, we're not being paid by our pharmaceutical company to sneak some sort of agenda in here. We're talking about topics that are pretty taboo and not easy to discuss, but I think we're both aiming to talk about them authentically. And that's how I aim to mostly teach her, but not by telling her, but me doing it myself first.
Totally. Those kids follow by example. It's like you tell them to get off tech and you're on tech. What are they going to do? Or if they catch you, eating this or eating that or whatever it may be, they follow right along with it. But when you walk that talk and they have the opportunity, to do the same, it's really special. Or the people who come at you and they're like, oh, well, Daniel, wait till, Davina's older, where do you see what happens? And you're like, well, I don't know, but I feel like I'm doing everything foundationally for her to not, go back into the matrix, to not continue to be breaking normal. She's the girl, and my children are the ones, they're breaking normal, every moment of every day.
Yeah, thanks for that question. And for my answer specifically, a lot of that comes down to how I interact with people socially. And she sees me get in fun, comfortable conversations. Mm. If someone's doing something I don't like, even to her or to me, and that person's there, it becomes a part of the conversation. And when they're doing something I like, I can be very over the top affirming, and she sees me in this way. And I think she's learned to, even if it's a little uncomfortable or a little scary to tell the truth, to tell it anyways.
Another question for you. How did you deal with the superstardom of the viral video of you quieting down Davina? How did you deal with that?
I published Breaking Normal, self-published Breaking Normal. Because I was sitting on this book for it was 99% done for a long time. And then we were talking to publishers, and now my friend had a person that's an expert in self-publishing. And he was like, I'll pay her. Well, he's going to pay her to do it. So I'm just like, let's do it. Because like, and we got it out probably a few weeks after that video.
Yeah.
But I do know the very next day when I got an Uber ride, the guy, when he dropped me off, he's like, see you later, daddy. And I was like, oh my gosh, he said, did he see that video? Yeah, because I wasn't with my daughter.
Awesome video. I mean, how that doesn't melt the hearts of us dads, like who did that, who like been there, done that, not as successfully as you did it. I will admit that. I'll do this too. You know, I'll be in the car with our 7 and 4-year-old girls, and I'll go through this rotation of Itsy Bitsy Spider and Twinkle Twinkle. And I'll go back and forth, and I'll just kind of keep repeating it like I did to them, just walking around the house so many times as my wife was desperately trying to get some shut-eye from constantly nursing children. But those of us dads who've been there in those moments, man, it's priceless. It's awesome.
I think I've hung around kids all my life. I'm the oldest brother of, we have four siblings total. And I've always found success in not trying to like communicate culturally to young kids, but more make the noises my body wants to make. And usually when I'm with kids, it's usually like a lot of whoa, yo, whoa, whoa, and like just playing around with them, and they love that. Yeah. And I used to to Davina in the womb too. I think that may have had one of the reasons that was so effective that time on video.
Talk to your babies in the womb. Totally. Well, my boys are big fans of yours, obviously, and we got to spend some time together a couple months ago and hit the sauna, then jump in the river, and we were exercising out there. It was an awesome day.
Yeah, awesome. I'm a big fan of your boys, your family, the whole Wolfson tribe, and what y'all are doing. So thank you. Definitely
appreciate it.
Follow this family and this man. It's pretty nonstop edutaining, and to me, you seem more addicted to authenticity than approval or fitting in, and that's pretty much the archetype of who I'm looking for. So thanks for epitomizing it.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, and thank you. Keep breaking normal, y'all.